Ground Up reports that thousands of food parcels meant for low-income households are gathering dust in Gauteng's food banks. This is due to payment delays by the Gauteng Department of Social Development. For more on this conversation, we're joined by children's rights activist, Dr. Siyabonga Nzimande. Dr. Nzimande, appreciate your time this afternoon. Now, let's talk about the numbers that are impacted by these food banks that are holding food and unable to deliver it due to non-payment.
Greetings to you, Hugo, and thank you so much for the invite. I think first, if I may, I need to set a reminder into the conversation of the government accountability towards the sustainable development goals, and mainly just focusing on goal number 2, which is primarily speaking about ending poverty and eradicating hunger. And if you look at how far we are towards the 2030 goals as the world who subscribe to these SDGs, and look at what is currently happening with the food parcels not reaching the communities. And this really shows a lack of accountability from the government side into the thousands of families that are affected. And mostly when we're talking about families that are affected, we also include the children in those families that are affected. And I also want to bring it a little bit step further and also really shine a spotlight on what informs these decisions when there is a tender that is delayed, when there's the budget that is being distributed, and there's maybe the redrafting of the budget where this could be the case in Gauteng. What data informs those situations? We're still having a lot of kids, thousands of children in Gauteng itself who are dying of malnutrition. And we need to begin to ask such critical questions that this decision, this interim problem that is currently faced by social development and the impact that it has on the families, mainly the children that are affected.
So how important are these food banks in ensuring food security for children?
I think it's very important to ensure, while we need to give credit where it's due, probably Gauteng has been one of the most progressive province when it comes to job creation. We do understand that bringing food to families may not be a sustainable long-term intervention that could be just be brought in, but creating jobs could be important. But also ensuring that directly, when we're creating jobs, how do we ensure that those jobs are directly linked to the beneficiaries that are currently receiving those grants, that are affected by those grants? It's sort of like, for me, then says as civil society, it speaks to how do we build a pressure for government to come up with one plan but not drop the ball for the other? Because it is important that it's a basic human right need that nobody should go to bed hungry. But we know that's the current situation with this current disturbance in Gauteng.
So you talk about civil society and the role that civil society needs to play. You also touched on accountability and transparency, and I think there might be a lack of that. Has civil society sort of missed the boat in as far as this is concerned, because they haven't raised the alarm? To the best of my knowledge, I stand to be guided. But surely if and when the problem was realized and civil society had made the necessary noise, then potentially the food parcels would not be gathering at least as much dust as they've gathered to date.
Yeah. I think there's two things that we need to begin to think about. It's the multi-sectoral stakeholder response into this problem. It's not a social development problem only. It's not a civil society problem only. It's not government only, and also business. It's the matter of them being coordinated and being able to work together. Then I want to bring it to what you've just alluded to. I am also beginning to question, as part of civil society, that where is our voice? And has our voice been mitigated into terms of reference of these structures that meet? The Premier in Gauteng has a structure that currently meets with civil society, business, as well as labor, including government. And I'm beginning to ask these critical questions of the voice of civil society. Sometimes I feel like we find it very easy to be invited by government and sit in these meetings, but then the very same a portfolio, or maybe even the platform that is provided for civil society to speak may actually is to close the mouth of civil society. We need to be more vocal when it comes to such issues. We need to come up with a mitigation plan. It is urgent. We look at this resource mobilization structure that says there is food, but it cannot be delivered to the community, and no one is saying anything. And yet there are structures that are currently in place. There is a political framework that is in place. And also I want to push it further and say, what is the legislative framework around this? What is the laws and policies that we need to begin to question around to even have this conversation? For me, it feels like it is a disgrace into our society, and we don't respect these households we're talking about. Perhaps it is time that we raise a spotlight on government to say it's not about the statistics. Behind every number, there's a human being. Behind every household that is being profiled and say they are rightfully deserving to be getting these food parcels, there are actually human beings that are actually looking forward into receiving this. If there's no money in social development, where's money from health? If there's no money from health, where's money from the business sector? Where are the funded NGOs in the province that are supposed to be acting towards and saying that we can provide an interim plan while government sort out its house? And we should not let government either, even in this state, go away without accounting, because we should not be having this conversation at all of food sitting there not reaching beneficiaries. We don't mean business when we speak about beneficiaries.
Well, Faith Mazibuko is the new MSc for Social Development for Gauteng, and we'd hope to speak to her regarding the same issue. In your mind, what are her key responsibilities? I mean, what are those things that she needs to do immediately in that action plan that she's probably come up with?
I think as the new MEC and any other government officials, and even including themselves as politicians, they should have a priority of prioritizing issues that are urgent. I also do feel that the social development as itself is not prioritizing this issue enough. It should be prioritized. It should actually bring in urgently stakeholders, not just to craft terms of reference, and they know what I'm referring to when I'm referring to terms of reference, because all you hear is that there is a document, there is a forum, there are terms of reference. When are we moving outside of these council meetings? When are we moving outside of these boardrooms? Their priority and the MEC priority right now, get on the ground and supply those food, even if it means you do it yourself.